Hello friends, for today's video I wanted to do a tier ranking of Cosmere couples. This was a patron suggested video quite a while back, but I wanted to wait until I was done with the Cosmere read-along that I did at the end of 22 and then all the way through 2023, so that those of you who were experiencing the Cosmere for the first time, that you would know who was who when we did this. I will say I'm not going to give spoilers as far as plot points or anything like that, but just hearing that certain characters end up together, might end up together, could be a potential thing that you're sensitive to. So if you find you're somebody who doesn't even like to hear a hint that characters might end up together, maybe this would be a video that you would want to come back to. I will say there's one couple that I'm going to wait until the very end of the video to mention, as if you have not caught up with Stormlight Archive, you might not want to hear about this couple. So that one I'm going to reserve for the end, and then that way, if you are fairly caught up with the rest of it, this will only be at the end and you can hop off at that point. But I'm going to go through, as I like to do with the tier ranking videos that I do, I'm going to go through the list of the participants, I'll call them, the couples, and most of these are on-page couples. There are a couple of the couples that are not actually on page, but a lot of people speculate that they might be involved with one another in some fashion, and then some of them are predictions or ships that people have, some of which I'm on board with, some of them I'm not on board with whatsoever, and I thought it'd be interesting to add that into the mix. Like I said, that one couple though, I'm not even going to mention in this list, I'm just going to save them for the very end, kicking it off with the participants, excuse me. So we have Yumi and Nikoro, Vin and Ellen, Vin and Zane, you probably already can guess my feelings about that one by how I said that, Sazed and Tindwyl, Wax and Steris, Breeze and Alrianne, Spook and Beldra, Raoden and Serene, Hrathen and Serene, Ciri and Sesebron, Dalinar and Evie, Shallan and Adolin, one of them that I'm going to skip, Navani and Dalinar, Sabariel and Pelona, Sadeas and Ialai, or technically it's Toril and Ialai, as Sadeas is his last name, but you get it. Tress and Charlie, Kaladin and Syl, I can't believe some people ship them, which we'll get to. Renarin and Relaine, Vivenna and Vasher, Vivenna and Vasher, and then Wayne and his hat. We'll kick it off by starting in the middle tier. And I think I'd like to start with maybe one of the Secret Project couples, and we'll kick it off with Tress and Charlie. I think Tress and Charlie seem so cute. What little you see of their relationship at the beginning seems so wholesome and so beautiful. It's like this adorable young love, and of course Tress going on this mission to rescue her love, and the way that it's kind of a component to the story, even if you wouldn't categorize this as a fantasy romance, it is in a lot of ways a love story. So I like them as a couple, and I think they seem really cute. The thing is, I think they seem really cute because you don't actually see them together that much. And even though everything we do see is really sweet, it's just so limited. So that's the only reason it's in the middle. I don't have, like, let's say that this is a good rubric, I think, to determine the ones I really love and the ones I don't care about at all, is if something were to happen to one of the love interests, how devastated would I be? That's kind of, and not just as I like this character devastation, but I am devastated for the other person in this couple. And with Tress and Charlie, there's a part of me that's like, I mean, you know, I don't know if I would be all that devastated. It would be kind of sad, but I don't think I would be as devastated as the ones that we'll see at the top. Next up, sticking to this middle, this might surprise some people because I know my friends always bring it up and they always make fun of me, and I know other people disagree with me a lot, and so I kind of go out of my way to avoid it now, bringing it up, but my friends in any kind of Cosmere discussion are always like, but you know, you hate them, and I'm like, I don't. So Shallan and Adolin, I don't loathe this couple. I'm not like, this is the most toxic relationship I've ever seen. It's not like that. They have their moments where they're sweet, and they have their moments where you sort of see them in what is kind of like a internal monologue, an inner monologue. It's third person, so you understand, though, that the characters are thinking about each other. They're thinking about their feelings for one another. They have some funny moments. They support each other. But I also think they have some elements in their relationship that are not my favorite. I think some of the ways in which they treat each other, specifically oftentimes how Shallan treats Adolin, is not my favorite. I also think Adolin, there is a tiny hint of Adolin finding Shallan interesting because she's not like other girls. I don't think it's to the extreme that you see in other stories, but there's a little bit where he's like, I've just never met a girl like you. And I'm like, really? You've dated so many women. They're all the same. And it's a hint of that. It's a hint of that. But they do have some moments that are great. I think Kaladin describes it best when he thinks that he likes them fine enough apart, but when they're together, they just kind of annoy him. And I think that I feel that way a little bit too. They're also very PDA, and I know it's a book, and I'm not literally watching them. And of course, we've seen so many books where you really get on page them feeling each other up and stuff. But with Shallan and Adolin, I mean, literally, they're kind of on each other a lot in front of other people. And part of me sometimes I'm like, hey, you know, what about the desolations and all of these really high stakes things that we got to think about? I'm glad they're able to find love through it all, I guess. But their relationship just doesn't feel as mature sometimes as I would like. And I'll add that when I say mature, I don't mean dry and boring, because I think that's what people think when they hear mature relationship. I think there are, and we'll get to some characters later, where they can have silly teasing and silly banter, and they can kind of make fun of each other, and they can bring out that sort of inner child where they're just so comfortable with each other that they can be ridiculous and goofy, and that's so sweet and so cute, and I love that. But it's less that, and it's more that I feel like sometimes they're just a little shallow. Not always. They have their deeper moments. Anyway, I'm going to move on. Because otherwise this is just going to be a whole video where I'm like, hey, so I know other people feel differently. Anyway, Raoden and Serene is the next one that I'm going to mention, or Serene, depending on how you say it. I also feel similar with this couple as I do to Tress and Charlie. You don't actually see them interacting very much, but they seem to really care about each other for reasons that seem really nice. They got to know each other by writing each other, basically. It's like a magical version of it. Talking to each other, and he seems to really value her mind, her perseverance, her progressive nature in what is rather a restrictive society. And she really seems to respect how outgoing he is, how optimistic he is. He seems so nice and friendly, and they just seem to genuinely like each other. And from there, it seems like they have a pretty good chance at making it work. It's kind of one of those couples, but you just really don't get a whole lot of them together. And that's the only reason that they're not necessarily higher. Ciri and Sisebron. So I think in the past, I would have put Ciri and Sisebron a lot higher. But their relationship, while sweet, and I think that there is something cute about Ciri being able to be herself, and that is kind of what sort of helps their relationship actually begin, is that he's always been treated a certain way, and her just treating people like people, it allowed him to then sort of open up and be more of a person around her. And then he really respects that the way she treats people, the way she treats him, he really admires her outlook on life, things like that. And there is that they're overcoming their cultural differences and learning to understand each other. There's that for sure in this couple. But Sisebron, because of how he's been treated, there is this kind of odd childlikeness to him. And some of the relationship a little bit feels like Ciri's helping him be an adult. And it's not to an extreme where it's just really gross, but it's just there's a hint of that. But he's also much older than her, so that's another component too. He doesn't seem like it, but he is. But he seems kind of childlike. And anytime in a relationship one of the characters seems a little bit childlike, it can be a little odd to me. And I'm not saying it's not super icky. It's not like he literally, the born yesterday trope, if you've never heard about that, it's usually the reverse. It's usually the woman. But the idea that a character, it's usually in sci-fi too, but somehow there is just this being that knows nothing and they're also really attractive. And so the other character has to teach them about everything. And then eventually they hook up and you're like, that's a little odd. And it's not like that. It's not quite like that. I just want to make that very clear. But there's just like that tiny hint of, oh, I have to help you become a grown-up. So, but it's not that bad. I feel like it sounds so much worse the way I'm describing it. They have cute moments. They are quite cute. And they're sweet with each other, and so that's why they're here. If I really thought it was bad, it wouldn't be in this middle tier. And then Vivenna and Vasher. Even though I've been saying with Tress and Charlie and Raiden and Serene, like, oh, we don't really see them together. This is one that I think the fandom really thinks is probably a thing for various reasons that I don't want to say. And I'm all for it. I like that he's so gruff, but he admires her resilient spirit. I like that she sort of got her wake-up call, but then he's not gruff because he's a awful person. It's just sort of like he's been hardened by how society is and these cycles that he's witnessed many a time, and the way that they sort of push each other and work together. I really like it. I like it a lot. So they're in this, I mean, they could be higher because I think they seem really great, but we pretty much haven't seen them as a couple at all. This is one of those that the fandom just kind of thinks is a thing. We sort of consider it a thing. And now going to tier 2 and tier 4. So one of the, I'm going to start with tier 2. So a more positive one. Wax and Steris. I think for a lot of people, this would absolutely be number 1. Might even be your favorite Cosmere couple. And there's a lot of reasons why I think they're absolutely fantastic. There's only one thing that's keeping this from being up higher. And I'll get to that in a second, but I really want to highlight the positives about this relationship. Steris is somebody who you see, she is constantly making lists. She always feels the need to try and be as prepared as possible, to the point where she prepares for being unprepared. And at first he's kind of like, wow, you're very thorough. But then he really just comes to respect the way in which she is so genuinely herself. He loves that about her. He admires that about her. And he also really vocalizes those things. It's not just that he thinks it, it's that he tells her, like, you know, you're actually... There's a whole world of people who are trying to think about how they can deceive people, and you're only ever being straightforward, and you are potentially the most honest person I have ever met. And I just love that he recognizes this thing about her that other people might see as an oddity. He sees it as something beautiful and great, and I think that's wonderful. And she really, I think, uplifts him, supports him, and she's already a fantastic character on her own. That's the thing, is they're both very distinct characters on their own. I know a lot of people think Wax is basically like a saltine cracker and that he doesn't have a lot of personality. I think that he's just not a caricature, and so he seems really bland in comparison to some of the other characters, like Wayne, for example. But I think he's just sort of this stoic, rugged, but maybe there's a lot more underneath the surface kind of a character. And so maybe I disagree a little bit with the idea that he's just so bland and has no personality. I might have thought that more the first time, but then rereading it, I'm like, I feel like there's a lot actually there. But anyway, Steris is so supportive of him when he has those moments of vulnerability. She's there for him. They're just really great at being there for each other, and I really like that about this couple. The only thing that is keeping them from being higher up is that a little bit, I do think that once they are more officially together, Steris sort of took a back seat in the story. And that made me a little sad, because I really would have liked to have seen how, now that they are more officially together, how do they work together once they're in that space? And you don't really get to see that much. I understand why, for plot reasons. It just would have been great to see them continuously after being more officially together. It would have been great to see them actually together, if that makes sense. But I still think it's one of the best. I'm going to stick to this category, and this next one is going to probably be so bizarre that I'm putting this here, but Toril Sadius and Iole Sadius. Now, I do not think they're good. They're not like, oh, they're so sweet. Not anything like that. This couple is here because when it comes to a more antagonistic couple, a more villainous type of couple, that can be a hard thing to succeed in writing because a lot of times people just go so extreme and you don't really understand why those characters are attracted to each other or why they were drawn to each other other than like, aren't we both evil? But these characters represent the ideals of the Alethi culture. And so it makes sense that Sadeas admires the things in Iole that he does, and Iole admires the things in Sadeas. So I feel like for that reason, them as a couple, you're like, I get why there is that them being drawn to each other. I understand that. And they're kind of a force. The two of them together, it's not just that you have to deal with one. You got to deal with both. They're both political masterminds. They both know how to manipulate a situation, and they are good at working together to do that, and it makes it so much more difficult for other characters to figure out how they're going to go up against them. So for that reason, I'm like, a villainous couple is hard to write, and they are actually, I think, quite well written. So yeah, of all couples to be kind of giving praise for, you wouldn't think it would be up here, but for me, Toril Sadeas and Iole Sadeas, I think are very interesting. Going down to the fourth tier, we have Dalinar and Evie. This one was difficult for me to figure out where I was going to place because I think this couple is written realistically. I think you actually do see a fair amount of this couple, and I think that the way in which their dynamic played out is very tragic. So, it's not like I'm basing this tier ranking solely on how much I like the couples, as is obvious from what I was just saying about Toril and Iole. But with Dalinar and Evie, I'm like, I feel like it was well written, but as a couple, they obviously are so unbalanced. Evie deserved so much better. I think most of us can agree the version of Dalinar that Evie was with was not somebody who was thinking ahead. They were not introspective. They did not reflect. They were pretty much the physical embodiment of the Alethi ideals, and people praised them for that, and Evie would try so hard to reach for the man that was there and have him see his enemies as people, not just as targets to overcome. And unfortunately, Dalinar wasn't really ready to listen. Also in this category, Vin and Zane. So I don't even consider Vin and Zane to be a couple, but I've heard people say that Sanderson has said himself that it was kind of sort of his stab at a love triangle. And I still, even knowing that that might be how he felt about it, I'm like, but they're not. They're not a couple. Zane is not in his right mind, and he has this he idolizes the power that Vin has, and he sees a companion in her because she is somebody who maybe might understand some of the experiences that he has. Whereas Vin is questioning her role. She's questioning who she is, if she's good enough. And she's very much going through a personal journey, as cheesy as that sounds, through the book in which you see this kind of sort of couple. And I think it's more so that she wonders, is Zane the kind of person I'm supposed to be with? Because do I have the morals? Do I have the ideals to be with someone who perhaps is more philosophical and who really thinks about morality? And so I don't think she actually was ever attracted to or actually interested in Zane. I think she just wondered if it was someone like that she would be better off with if she was to ever even actually be with somebody. That said, I still don't think it's a couple. I don't think of them as a couple, so I'm like, I can't put them up higher. I think that, no. So they're here for that. I'm like, ugh. Zane's one of those characters that forever and always I'll be like, either we should have gotten a lot more of Zane, or Zane shouldn't have even been in the story, because I honestly, Well of Ascension is my favorite book in that trilogy upon multiple rereads. And I forget about him sometimes. I'm like, how is that even possible? He's kind of a big deal in the book, but is he? So anyway, yeah, Vin and Zane, no, that I never seriously actually considered that couple. Going back up to tier 2, Renarin and Rlain. Oh, do I love this. I think it's so sweet. Both of these characters can connect to each other just purely based off of the fact that they have often not felt like they fit in. And they know what that's like. So for them, they seem like they get along. They both seem sweet. They want to try and do ultimately what's best, even when it feels like they have to do what is ultimately best on their own because they don't really have a support system necessarily. So you see that a lot more, I think, when we're talking about Bridge 4, R'Lane, for obvious reasons, even though Kaladin and all of his other members of Bridge 4 have seen the way in which the world treats them different for being dark eyes, they've treated them different for their slave brands. There's all these various things that have kind of developed this cue in people like, oh, you're less than. And even though they know what that's like, they still don't always remember to not extend that same sort of negative treatment to R'Lane. So he has to basically be the best person ever, because it's just as soon as there's anything that might remotely increase people's horrible views, he will just be demolished because it's just like people already have these preconceived notions of him. So R'Lane knows what that's like. And then Renarin has never fit the Alethi ideals. He knows how people talk about him. He has always often felt like he's not good enough. He's useless. He's the second son that gets forgotten. And he tries so hard and he does everything he can. And the idea that these two characters would potentially see love in one another, connect with one another, be there for one another, it would be so sweet and so cute. So I would be all for this couple. I think it'd be great. Back to tier 4. Breeze and Allrianne, we don't see them a ton. I actually think Breeze like truly loves Allrianne, and I think Allrianne actually does truly love Breeze. They're just kind of an odd couple. They're just sort of odd, and they're fine. It's not even necessarily because there's an age gap, because my parents had a very large age gap between the two of them, so that's not why they're here. They're just kind of, I don't know. Sometimes I think about them and I'm like, they're kind of cute. And then other times I'm like, it's a little odd. I think because she acts kind of childlike. It's back to that same thing. She acts a little childlike. So again, it's not that there's an age difference. It's that she really seems to and I get why she does it. She does it because she is another individual who knows what it means to manipulate people's emotions and perceptions. So she plays up this little girl act a little bit, like, I'm young and dumb, and that's not actually true about her at all. But because she plays up that act, I think it makes her relationship with Breeze feel all the more like, well, I don't know about this. Yeah, I don't know. I might move on from this one. Dalinar and Navani, going back up to tier 2. I hesitate with this couple because I don't like that it seemed like Dalinar is still absolutely, and Navani, I would say. Well, no, Dalinar more so. I already put Dalinar lower with Evie because I was like, he wasn't a good husband to Evie. Dalinar, though, still part of why he wasn't a good husband is because he obviously still had attraction to Navani, and I don't know how much he really tried to push those thoughts out. I feel like they came to the surface all the time. He didn't really, I don't know how much he really, I think he let them stay. I think he didn't mind that they existed. Navani, I think, attempted to really be a good wife to her husband, who, as you see, yeah, I don't want to say too much about that. But regardless, Navani and Dalinar, I do think that when they're together, they do support each other. So I'm like trying not to think about their past. I'm trying to think of them just genuinely as a couple. When they're together, they're a force to be reckoned with. They are kind of the opposite to Toril and Ialai in the sense that, like, as a couple, you are not just dealing with one, you're dealing with both. They support each other. When one has something going on, the other is there for them. And Navani goes through it. There's so many things that she has to push through emotionally. The grief that she has to have just with her all the time. And she's still going on to be this amazing woman, this amazing scientist. And I love that Dalinar is not like that, but it's never that she thinks of Dalinar as dumb, and it's never that he thinks of her as frivolous or anything like that. They both just have such an admiration for each other. So I do respect that. I do a little bit have a defensive part of me because Navani was not exactly kind to Evie when you see the past, and so there's a part of me that's like, I hate that. I don't like that. And I just feel like Evie deserves the world. She was so nice. But regardless, literally, Dalinar and Navani as a couple together, I think that they're a good couple. Last for this tier would be Yumi and Nikuro. I almost put them in top because that whole concept of if something were to happen to one of them, how devastated would I be? I'd be pretty sad about it. Also, though, they have the benefit of pretty much that whole book is sort of about them falling in love. And when you have a whole book, it's pretty, unless you fail miserably, you're like, yeah, the person reading it is likely going to want them to be together. I still have other couples that I like more. So I was like, they had so much time and I liked seeing their relationship. It was so sweet and it was so great to see how they supported each other and also pushed each other, and sometimes they bickered with each other, but they acted like human beings around one another. It was like a sweet young love, and I thought that was great. But if you have the whole book, I better be like, this is one of my favorite couples of all time. And I don't necessarily feel like they're one of my favorite couples of all time, at least at the moment. So they could be up a little higher. If I had another tier, they'd probably be in like a second, but like 1.5, tier, but 2. I'm not going to add extra tiers just for them. Okay, now getting to the extremes. Let's just get this out of the way. Kaladin and Syl, no. I already explained why basically in talking about that concept of the born yesterday trope, that childlike, where one of them is basically a parental role and the other one is childlike. I don't like that. That's icky. It's so, I really don't like it. So please, no, let this never be a thing. Please let this never be a thing. It would be so uncomfortable. It'd be so uncomfortable. I don't want it. I don't need to give more detail. That's it. No. If you love Kaladin and Syl, I would be very curious to know that. I'm not going to judge you for that. I just think it's gross. Going up to the top. Which one do I want to start with? Let's start with a side character couple. Sabaril and Polona. I love them. They're so great. They're constantly making fun of each other. They're constantly teasing each other. They're constantly just being like sassy with each other, but they so obviously love each other pretty much more than anything, and they're basically like that old cute couple that they're always kind of teasing each other, but it's with love. It's not like, do they actually resent each other and feel like they wasted their whole lives by staying with each other? Not that kind of teasing, but the teasing where you're like, oh, they're just like constantly ribbing each other. That's how I feel like about this couple, and I don't even think they're that old, but they're just cute. They're just cute. And I really like them. Not cute, Spook and Beldra. Probably one of the worst things about Mistborn. I love Mistborn. One of my favorite series of all time. Spook and Beldra. So odd. It's basically like, isn't this mysterious man who's kind of sort of stalking you actually like attractive though? And maybe his obsession with you is actually really nice? No, it's not. It's weird. It's weird. I don't like it. And what even is Beldra's personality? Her personality is she's related to another character that shows up in the book. That's her personality, is that she's a relative. So yeah, not a fan. Don't like this couple. It's weird. Going back to the top, Sazed and Tindwyl. They're so cute. They're so cute. Tindwyl is just so aggressive and harsh, and Sazed is such a cinnamon roll sweetheart. And the fact that I don't want to get into it too much because I don't want to get into too many plot spoilers, but Sazed he was resigned to being alone and then to find this companionship in Tindwyl, especially through academic reasons, their culture, their perseverance, them being leaders within their group. I just think that they're so sweet. I love them so much. I think he loves her tenacity, and I think she really appreciates his calm, subdued nature. And I love them. They really are like opposites attract, but they're so kind of perfect. Anyway, okay, moving back down to the bottom. Hrathen and Serene. Okay, I know that there's some debate about this couple because Hrathen realizes Oh gosh, I can't say too much about this couple, but basically there's this idea of like there's kind of an idea that he loves her. But I'm like, what? That's sort of my takeaway from that is what? No, I understand there being like this person who is sort of like your enemy, but they always pushed you. But that's not love. That's not love in the way it kind of seems like the book was going for. And also with Serene, she just knows this guy as somebody who is her adversary in her goals. What even? That's one of the weirdest. That's like the thing that doesn't make any sense about Elantris to me was that. Why did it have to? Why? Why was there even a hint of, oh, actually, love? No. No, you can love the way they push you. You can love this. I mean, they like don't even ever really interact, barely at all. Anyway, Hrathen and Serene, it just doesn't make any sense to me that this is even sort of seen as a romance. And then last for the ones I can say, and then I'll get to the ones that you might want to hop off for. Vin and Elend. They learn to love one another when they're going through some of the most difficult circumstances. When people talk about romances and fantasy, and we say all the time, can the couple put their situation on pause because the world is basically ending? Can that happen, please? Can they not be like, I don't care, the world can burn, I just love you? That nonsense that none of us like, they're pretty much the opposite. They're like, hey, we gotta take care of the world, and also I need to trust you enough, and you need to trust me enough that we know that we are always trying to attain this common goal. They work fantastically together. You don't just have the, oh, are they going to be together? Now they are. Okay, that's that. You see their relationship build throughout the trilogy. The first time I read it, I thought they were a tiny bit dry, just a little bit. But ultimately, I think they're actually one of my favorite couples of all time. Not just Cosmere. I think they're one of my favorite couples of all time. How often do you see a couple that you see them through the entirety essentially of their, like when they first meet, them getting to know each other, now they're together, they're working together, they push each other, they question, they have their internal struggles, they have their struggles within their relationship, but yeah, just that. I mean, it's just what I think so many of us want to see with couples, and you see that with Vin and Elend. So, yeah, I think they might be my favorite out of all of these. I just think that they're fantastic. Now for the ones that I probably couldn't really say before. Oh, I skipped this one earlier. You can stick around if you want for this, but Wayne and his hat, I went ahead and put in the middle tier because, you know, we really don't get to see the hat's perspective on things. We don't know how they feel. Do they even want to be sitting on Wayne's head? Do they want to contribute to his disguise? You don't know. So for that reason, you know, we know Wayne loves the hats, but we don't know how the hats feel. And then for the one that I couldn't say before, because I really think just saying this character might be a reveal for some people. But if you're that individual, if you're one of those people, you can hop off. I'm going to say it now. Yasna and Wit. I'm putting them in the second tier. I kind of dig it. I think that the fact that he is obviously been in existence for a long time, and she is so intelligent and so captivating and such a force that he's kind of just drawn to her, and the fact that she pretty much no mortal man is gonna match, and not just man, but just like there's no other human, it feels like, who is really on her page and on her level, and the fact that Wit kind of is, it's sort of cool that they meet each other where they do. They're a little strange, I will say. They're a little bit strange of a couple, just because Wit has these moments of just being a complete idiot. He can be such an idiot, and he can be so aggravating, and he doesn't even feel like a person. But I guess that's what kind of works, is I'm like, I don't feel like a person's enough for Yasna. I don't know. They work weirdly. They kind of work. But they are definitely a little different. You know, they're not, I don't really feel like they have like the cute, they're certainly not Sabariel and Polona, I think is what I'm trying to say. That's it though for a Cosmere couple tier ranking. I'm very curious to know how you would rank these couples. As I said at the beginning, let me know the one you agree with the most and the one that you disagree with the most. And if there are any other couples that I didn't mention, I tried to include main couples and side character couples, and then also, like I said before, ones that's pretty agreed upon in the fandom that are likely going to be a couple. But if there's any I missed, feel free to mention them also. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.